What's up? Welcome to the unofficial Tedeschi Trucks podcast. This is episode number 99, and I am Adam Choit. To follow this show, it's at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram and on YouTube. Just search Tedeschi Trucks Podcast. If you're watching, you are already there. So please be sure to subscribe, give the show likes, comments, positive comments. All that stuff is definitely greatly appreciated for sure. I'm at Adam Choit on Instagram and Twitter if you want to follow me. And of course, please be sure to subscribe to the show on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on, iTunes, Spotify, all of Apple Podcasts, whatever it's called. I appreciate that too. I have another podcast that's called People We Love. And what I do with that one is interview people from all walks of life, most often comedians, entertainment types, activists, all kinds of interesting characters from, like I said, all walks of life. And it's a casual conversation, and people tell me about their lives and careers, but also the people who've inspired them, who've influenced them, who've helped them in their journey, personal life, career. That's been super duper fun. One more plug for myself. I have a short film that I wrote and directed that is available now for free. It's on YouTube. It's on the film's official website. It is called The Edited. It is a dystopian psychological satire. I won't tell you. I won't go into it too much, but I appreciate the support on that front too. TheEditedMovie.com for that one. The film is embedded there, and it's also on my personal YouTube channel. Definitely want to check that that as well. I appreciate that, as I appreciate everything. I use the word appreciation a lot, but I really do mean it when I use it. But without further ado, I just want to do a quick intro for today's guest, Bob Oze Farrell. I hope I'm saying Oze right. I'm realizing it right now. He's nodding in the waiting room that I did say it correctly. He is a hardcore TTB fan from South Jersey, born and raised, and he's still living there to this very day. We connected at I think both of the Beacon shows the last 2 years, just chatting it up by the stage door, talking all things TTB, and I could sense right away that this guy loves the band probably just as much as I do. He's been to almost a couple dozen shows himself at this point. I think that's about all I need to say. It's going to be another great conversation, I'm sure, with another dedicated Swamp Family member coming up. So let's get into it. Without further ado, here's Bob Oze Farrell. What's up?
Hey, Adam.
Oh, how's it going? I said your middle name. Is it your middle name or your maiden name? Suddenly I'm realizing as I'm introducing this guy, I don't know how to say his name. I'm not totally sure.
That is my nickname I gained freshman year in high school, and it has had all kinds of iterations. So I answer to all of them. Oze, Ozzy, Oze. So it comes when I was a freshman in high school. I walked around the hallways in a daze because I didn't know where I was going, and I was on the cross country team, so I knew some upperclassmen, and they said I was always in the ozone layer. So,
oh wow,
it stuck.
I can relate to that, I suppose. Well, how you holding up during whatever year this is?
Very good, very good. We were not too recently off of the Beacon run. Still in a little bit of the afterglow, and have the Warner shows to look forward to. So it's always good when I have some TTB tickets in hand and shows to look forward to.
I think that's one of the meanings of life, actually, or at least one of the ways to add meaning to life is always have something to look forward to, both in the short, medium, and long term. That day, that week, that month, that year, the next year, always kind of have things on the calendar. It kind of like keeps you going and keeps you excited about things, and that's good. And what is more exciting than seeing TTB shows? And like you said, having the tickets in hand is definitely like, it's peace of mind, because I think one of the most stressful things, and we can get into this at some point, is like securing tickets and being on electronic waiting lines and dealing with Live Nation, Ticketmaster, all these outlets. It's just get me in the building.
yeah. It doesn't help my stomach issues at all. Waiting in the Ticketron queue.
Oh yeah. Tell me about it. Well, we can get into it, and kind of what I ask people to do is to tell me a little bit about their background and kind of like where they grew up and a little bit about their family. We don't have to go into your entire life story from start to finish, but I kind of want to know about like your musical journey and people's musical journeys. And like I always say, life kind of fills in the gaps for the purposes of this conversation. Why don't you tell me about that? South Jersey life and early music memories, family memories, and we'll we'll get the conversation going and get to TTB when we get there.
Well, like you said, I grew up in South Jersey, just outside of Philadelphia, in a little town called Stratford, which is it was a great little town to grow up in, and my mom lives there to this day, and I don't live too far now. I lived in a couple different places during my time, but Stratford was a great place to grow up. And musically, my father was a teacher. He taught history. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and I have 2 sisters and a brother, so it was a fairly sized family. And musically, a lot of pop, like AM. Dad wasn't real musically inclined, but mom loved music. But it was a lot of AM. But I got the Beatles, I got the Carpenters. My mom loved Streisand and Herb Alpert. So it was those influences early. A lot of Burt Bacharach. So I think I sent you a picture of the time I got my first ticket. Was on my 11th birthday. I got a Carpenters ticket. My mom brought me to see the Carpenters at the Academy of Music, and that was 50 years ago. So
yeah.
Now,
I'll show that picture. Let's see if I could pull up here. I think I got it right here. Let's see here.
Putting you on the spot.
Technology. I'll describe it for the listening audiences as well. There you go.
As you can see, that's my look at TTB shows too now.
Wait, what actually is going on in this?
It is my 11th birthday.
You're on the left or the right?
What's that?
Who are you, on the left or the right in this picture?
I am on the looking at in the yellow, in the gold shirt. My mom is standing next to me in curlers. That's my mother. She is in curlers. That's why her hair is in, and her hair was shorter. And so that's my 11th birthday, and what I've received is a pair of Carpenters tickets. I loved Karen Carpenter. I had a crush on Karen Carpenter. I love their songs, and as you can see, Adam, down at the bottom of that picture, you can see some of the albums. Mom had a lot of classical albums, a lot of pop stuff that we listened to. And after the Carpenters, it was on to John Denver for a while, and then a lot of classic rock. I think I showed you some of the tickets after that.
Right.
Some of my next shows were like Styx, ELO. Who else? Got to see the Kinks. And then now we're getting into my college years, like Kinks. We went to see Supertramp and Genesis, and got to see Billy Joel.
Yeah. What years were you like in college? And I'm gonna date you, but what?
No problem.
What years were you seeing the Kinks and all that? When was that? Because they had a pretty long run there.
Yeah. So I saw the Kinks in like 81. 81. It was and that was a crazy trip. I went with a frat, and we rented a bus, and the bus was filled with beer. Went down to the Kinks. But what was cool is at the Spectrum, I had a buddy, and I'm going to call him out. His name was Joey Ciccone, and Joey Ciccone worked at the Spectrum. And when our first concert, the Styx, we looked up Joey Ciccone, and we found out that he worked right in front of the stage. And somehow, and I don't know how, Adam, but somehow he would get us tickets right in that section, like no worse than 10th row. I don't know how he did it, and I can't. Probably a good 6-7 shows he did that for me. Kinks being one of them. I was a hero with a couple of guys from the band. I mean, from the frat, because I got him so close in that one. But then I showed you one from the Who, which was a great show. That was at John F. Kennedy Stadium in Philadelphia.
It was at in DC. Or RFK was DC. What's John F. Kennedy Stadium?
John F. Kennedy Stadium was a huge stadium right outside of Veterans Stadium. It was in that same area in Philadelphia. All the stadiums were in the same kind of area.
Right.
Live Aid was the U.S. portion of Live Aid was at JFK Stadium in Philadelphia. They used to play the Army-Navy game there a lot. It could hold about 100,000 people if it was filled. There it is.
Yeah, April 25th, September 25th, 1982.
So here's the lineup, Adam. Hooters opened, then the Clash. Now, for some reason, the Philly crowd, they booed the Clash off the stage after the third song. Don't ask me why. We weren't part of that crowd. I don't know why it happened. The Police came on next, and of course, Sting wasn't happy that we booed the Clash off the stage. So we got a lecture from Sting saying, "Philly, that wasn't nice."
This was Live Aid, you said?
No. This was just it was
a
the
show.
Who's final. What was billed as it was the Who's final concert.
Okay.
That's what it was billed as. So it was a huge lineup. And then after the Police, Santana followed the Police, and then the Who. So you see the show started about 12. We didn't get out of there till probably 10, 11 o'clock at night. It was an amazing show.
So it sounds like you were always pretty hardcore into music and always going to shows, or at least as much as you could.
Concerts have always been a passion of mine. Is that if I've liked an artist, on a studio basis, like from an album, I always strive to get to see them live.
Yeah,
because I think it adds a dimension to music, and I always like to kind of see it live. Now, I haven't succeeded for every artist that I admire, but I've got a good list behind me at this point. So yeah, it was a journey, and it was weird because it was classic rock up until, I don't know what year it was, but I listened to a station out here in Philadelphia called WXPN in Philadelphia, and it's a public radio station. It's publicly supported. It's out of the University of Pennsylvania, and they're a fantastic station. And they did this 885 greatest song list, and my buddy and I kind of strived to. It was the time of Napster and the beginning of downloads. You were just starting to download music, and computers were just starting to get good enough that you could start downloading music to them. So we strived to get every song of that 885 list, and that was a wide-ranging list. And it really opened me up to a lot of different music that I hadn't been listening to before, because I was kind of classic rock kind of focused. A wide range of classic rock, but it was kind of classic. I really wasn't into blues that much. I wasn't into some of the bluegrass and some of the other stuff that I enjoy now. And that 885 list, was really an eye opener. And then that expanded my concerts to some really great artists. So,
did you ever
introduce me to Susan Tedeschi and the Derek Trucks Band?
Oh, when was that about? That must have been
that was
late 90s, early 2000s, I would assume.
Yeah, exactly. It was like in maybe 2005, 2006 era that I started kind of listening to Susan and saying, man, what a great voice, what a great blues voice. And I got to get to see her live, and the opportunity finally for me came for that Atlantic City show. And so I went with a buddy. We went to that Atlantic City show. We had pretty good seats because I was, I had some pre-sales with the venue. So the seats were pretty good. And, we walked out of there, my buddy and I, we've been to, at that point, Adam, I got to say, at least 150 shows, for various artists. And we both walked out of there, and I said to him, oh, do we just see that? I mean, is that just unbelievable? We're just blown away.
So what year did you say that Atlantic? We're going to go back a little bit, but what year did you say that Atlantic City show you were referring to was?
Yeah, it was 2016.
Okay, so you discovered. So you discovered Susan and Derek around 2005. It sounded like with their bands.
Yes, from through XPN.
Right, and then TTB later. But I want to go back to like even some childhood stuff, because it sounded like you were always into music and hearing it, and always around. It was always around you. Did you play instruments or anything like that? Did you ever play?
No, I always tell people I don't play, but I listen real hard. But no, I tried, but my coordination has never been great. I was as far as athletics, I was a runner, which doesn't require that much coordination. As long as I didn't chew gum, I was fine. But yeah, it was so in that, but I had a buddy who was in a band. I've got a group of friends that I've known since like first grade. And one of the guys was a lead singer in a local band here that had some local success. They were popular here in South Jersey, but just not enough for them to make a living at it. It was one of those where, it was a great hobby, but it was, they didn't quite, weren't quite able to make a living out of it. Now part of the band is I think still, I think they're still doing it. I think some of the guys are now in retirement, now that they're, got some time on their hands, they're back at the band. So I hung around with them a lot. But like I said, at the shows, I tried to get to concerts as often as possible. Back in that day, it was a little different. I mean, in order to get a ticket, you had to go to a Ticketmaster outlet. And I don't know how old you are, Adam. Did you ever have to
remember the
that?
lines and the wristbands and some of these things. Of course. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you had to find the right Ticketmaster outlet or know somebody who had tickets. So, but yeah. And then I had a buddy who he loved the Grateful Dead, and they'd come to Philly for 3-4 shows, and he'd always ask me, "Hey, Oze, you want to go to a show?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, say me a show. Say me a show." So, but yeah, so we a lot of classic rock, but yeah, I love going to shows, but never was able to. I tried drums at one point, but I got no rhythm.
You just it's weird. I feel like everybody can learn if they stick with it. Some people are obviously going to be better and have more natural talent than others, but I feel like I don't know, like everyone can learn to sing in key and can learn to do at least some basics on an instrument. I kind of believe that, but yeah, if it's super challenging for some more than others, I could see that being a deterrent from certainly sticking with it. Did you have a favorite band at all, or favorites? Because a lot of these acts are iconic acts, so maybe not. So
like I said, the Carpenters were my first group that I loved. Then it was John Denver, and I was John Denver all the time for years and years. I still love the music. I really enjoyed John Denver. But then after that, it was Styx, ELO, Billy Joel. Who else?
You just kind of go through these, not phases, but as you evolve, you discover, and you're just kind of like, this is what I'm really focused on listening now. Like you're getting to your moods, but you still love all this stuff. I'm guessing.
For me, it was as the albums came out. Because for Styx sense. It was Grand Illusion, and then Paradise Theater, and then ELO. I was there for a buddy of mine. He loved them, for when like Discovery and some of those. I really came into ELO with their Time album, which is late in their career, but and then I went back, but yeah, the Time album was the album that I love for ELO. But it was kind of album driven, and then Fleetwood Mac comes out with Rumors, and these are some of the iconic albums that I remember. Cheap Trick at Budokan, I had that on tape. Driving down Stevie Miller, the Steve Miller Band, Neil Diamond, I had on tape. Seals and Croft.
What music? I mean, this is maybe not the best question, but what music don't you like? What kind of like? Because it seems like you're fairly, at least. I mean, classic rock can be a broad thing, but did you not like country or metal or something? Those polarizing genres. And in that respect, yes, I've never really gotten into metal or punk. When the punk phase was around, I wasn't into punk. When we talk about rap, some of it I enjoy, but it's probably not my genre. In country, I'm on the edges, as far as country's concerned. I kind of dance around the edges of country here and there. I know your last guest mentioned Billy Strings, and I've gotten into him recently, and he's probably more bluegrass than country. And
So I'm going to see him in Atlantic City upcoming, and looking forward to that show. But yeah, as far as country was concerned, it wasn't part of my my record collection. And back in the day, when I was growing up, I didn't get many 45s. That wasn't, because I date myself, because back when I was growing up, it was all albums, it was all vinyl. So, and the 45s I had were things like one-hit wonders. I was for the most part, I had Billy Don't Be a Hero, The Night Chicago Died, Wildfire. Those are the singles I had. But albums were something that I had to know that the album was good before I go out and spend the money on it, because for me at that time, that was a big purchase, and those generally either was a Christmas or I had to save up and buy them myself. And so when I bought an album, I wanted to make sure that it was something I was going to enjoy.
And how do you do that? Yeah, I was gonna ask, how do you do that? Because obviously some stuff comes up on the radio, but not every track ends up on the radio, right? So
not every track.
But if you like what, I was gonna say, if what comes on the radio you like the 2 or 3 songs that are singles, that's enough for you to like.
Yeah,
I got you.
Exactly. Is if I had 2 or 3 songs, I'd be okay. Maybe it's worth a shot. A lot of times friends might already have the album, and I wanted, a copy for myself at home, because they get the album first. I did that a lot, listen from somebody else's turntable first, got an idea what the album was like, and said, oh, I love that album. Maybe I'll grab that one myself. And then college, I went to college. I went to a college out in Pennsylvania, a little school called Ursinus. And that's where my first Southern rock influences came about. One of my first roommates, Jimmy Jeffers, he had a tape we called the Amy tape. And it was a mixtape. Back then, we're getting into mixtapes. This went from vinyl to cassettes and mixtapes. And, people got these fancy stereo systems where they could, tape off of albums.
I remember that two cassette players.
Oh yeah. Oh, those were that was ideal, because then you could get a mixtape and you could copy it and give it to somebody else. Those were the best. But he had a mixtape, and we called it the Amy tape because it had Pure Prairie League's Amy. It had Marshall Tucker. It had Allman Brothers. And who else? Panama Red. Forget who does that song. But it was really good. It was really good tape. And that kind of brought me into the Southern rock influences. There were some folks who loved Leonard Skinner when I was growing up, so I had some of those influences too. There was a huge fight in our cafeteria one year over the jukebox. Somebody didn't like Led Zeppelin being getting played too often.
People do make that make that point sometimes. I feel like that's actually more of an East Coast thing. Actually, I mean, I actually don't listen to the terrestrial radio all that much, but when I did, when I first moved to LA, it's many years ago at this point, I noticed that classic rock radio was not as heavy Led Zeppelin. Plenty of it still, but it seemed like East Coast classic rock radio, New York and New Jersey, Connecticut was heavier on Led Zeppelin for whatever reason.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so college was I went to see the Kinks, Grateful Dead. Who else did I see during that time period? Genesis. Went to see Genesis a couple times, and they had a great light show. I mean, some of these concerts were spectacles too. Like ELO's Time was a spectacle.
What show became? Yeah, I'm curious because now I'm thinking about spectacles, and obviously the Stones shows in the 80s and whatnot, even in the 70s became spectacles. What was the first concert popular classic rock or whatever concert that was became a spectacle? Is that more in the 60s where the festivals and the lights and all more of the when did the idea of a concert being a spectacle become a thing?
I think that
I don't know if you know the answer to that or not, but
Well, from it's not from experience. I think that Pink Floyd was a big influence in that respect. I think that they,
Sure.
their concerts, they had a lot of lights and a lot of effects that way, and and then the acid rock scene back then. But yeah, for me, it was Styx put on a great show for Paradise Theater. It was kind of a theme album. Also, ELO's Time was kind of a theme album, and it was just a great show. The lighting effects and coming up from underneath the stage, and Genesis, they at the time had some lights that were kind of state of the art that everybody imitated. They're still there with the lights where they automatically go up and down like that, and go out to the audience and focus real quickly. Those were something that Genesis actually had a patent on, I believe, for a little while. But those were great shows. The Genesis shows were fantastic shows. And then we'd have those festival shows like it. There were a couple of them. I know Genesis was one where it's like the Flock of Seagulls, and who else was there? Somebody else was there. But yeah, I mean, it's a shame that I've been to so many. I forget some of them if I don't have the ticket with me, and that's why I keep so many tickets, because I've been to quite a few shows.
Now, ticket stubs are great. I would guess a lot of the idea of the spectacle and the atmospheric lighting, I guess probably maybe a lot of that did come out of like the 60s psychedelic era, and the imageries and the artwork and some of the stuff that came out of that, and just like it became taken to the next level, I would guess, by like Pink Floyd and bands that came after, with like incorporating lights and effects and all that stuff, and just building something into a spectacle.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah.
then my career kind of intersected with music a little bit too. Is I work in the accounting areas, and I work for Aramark, and I audited stadiums,
the vendor,
and
food vendor.
Exactly. So I audited. I worked for the Leisure Service Division, which had the concessions at the stadiums and arenas, and so I'd get to stadiums and arenas, and we'd have to go to an event. Sometimes those were concerts. So I got to see ZZ Top and Black Crowes. Had all access pass. It was great. Those kind of things were fun and good. And then at the Spectrum, because Philadelphia was our home base, there were some connections there. So I was able to get, I didn't take advantage of it too often, but I was able to get tickets to like Billy Joel and Elton John and the Supertramp's last tour. It was good. So that was kind of the Aramark phase. And then I was up in New York, went up to New York for work, and I was up in the New York area, and got to see Melissa Etheridge up there, Alanis Morissette. That was sort of the 90s era.
You've seen everyone. It sounds like you've seen like every popular act in the classic rock genre, so to speak, or even more of the modern stuff. Like Melissa Etheridge is rock. I mean, all that
unbelievable.
Stuff,
she puts on an amazing show. There's artists that really come out live, and Melissa is one of those. She just puts on a fantastic show.
She still tours. Does Melissa Etheridge she's still around?
Yeah, I just saw her.
That might be a fun show.
I saw her post-COVID. So that wasn't too long ago. I saw her down at I think it was the Tropicana. I think it was a pre-COVID ticket. Because I had a lot of those. I had a lot of pre-COVID tickets. You have to buy tickets, 6 months, a year in advance sometimes. So there were a lot of pre-COVID tickets. But yeah, she's still touring, and she still puts on a fantastic show. It's great.
Very cool.
And I'm trying to think of who else I saw during that time period. It was good. Natalie Merchant at the Beacon. That was my first show at the Beacon. Was Natalie Merchant. I saw her at the Beacon. I think I saw James Taylor at the Beacon. I've seen him a number of times. He was one of my favorite. Billy Joel and James Taylor, pre-Tedeschi Trucks, were probably the most shows that I had seen, because
those must have been your. Those guys must have been your favorites. Or one of your favorites.
Oh, Billy Joel's fantastic. Oh, Billy Joel's just unbelievable in concert. He's fun in concert.
Him and the Yeah, I was gonna say Billy Joel and the Stones were kind of like my favorite acts bands, like pre-TTBs. As a Jewish guy from Long Island, you can imagine that Billy Joel like is obviously a
Yeah,
big part of
yeah,
my musical journey growing up, and that music always being around.
yeah,
Of course, the
yeah.
Long Island sun there for sure. I
Uh-huh.
want to because we kind of started getting into a little bit of the TTB Susan and Derek stuff, and I wanted to just kind of clarify the timeline. So 2015, you said was the first TTB show you went to. Atlantic City, 16.
2016. Atlantic City.
But you had discovered Susan and Derek in around
Yes,
2005, 2006, but you didn't see either of them live at that
but
point.
neither of them I had seen live at that point. It was just, the venues just weren't on my radar, I don't think. But then I've been hearing enough on XPN of them that I just had to get to see it. Because it was really, I got to be honest, it was really Susan that I really went to see. Because of her voice, her the blues that I heard on XPN from her solo stuff was just incredible, and I just had I was like I got to go see these guys. So if by that time they were combined, and I already learned that through the station that they combine their bands. So I said, all right, well let me it was Atlantic City, let me go check it out, and from the first note with Tedeschi Trucks, they just blow you away. It really is. And for me, you've heard my history, there's so much there, but these guys just blew me away. I mean, just blew me away. And Adam, I'm telling you, best live act I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot. As I've said, I've seen a lot. In my opinion, they are the best live act that I've ever seen, and they're so consistent about it. Show after show, just so consistently good. But yeah, that Atlantic City show, we walked out. It was weird because it was it's about an hour drive from where we live to Atlantic City, and my buddy and I, and it was pouring rain, just a nasty drive down there, and I hate those nerve-wracking drives. So it was kind of like, in a kind of weird kind of state to begin with. It was kind of, it's kind of irritated kind of thing. And I was spoiled at that time. I've been to a lot of shows and, so I'm like, why did I get these tickets? And so we got in there and from the first note and I am, I'm an old man and I don't dance. My wife, she can barely get me out on a dance floor. But Tedeschi Trucks, I found myself moving ways that I never knew I could. So, that was something that told me, that these guys were really good. You get this old man moving, you're damn good. The Dead might have done it once or twice. If some of these artists got in a groove once or twice. But a whole show like Tedeschi Trucks does with me, nah, it's crazy, and that's the way it was from that very first show. It was like that. We walked down on that board, and I remember walking down the Atlantic City boardwalk, and thinking, "Wow, what a show!" And we both looked at each other and said, "Can you believe that? Can you believe that?" And we just kind of like, "Did we just see what we just saw? Was that for real?" So we were hooked. I was hooked.
May 14th, 2016, was that the show?
Yeah, that was it.
Boardwalk Hall, Atlantic City. I pull up the set list on setlist.fm here. Don't know what it means. Like from that first note of that song, I'm sure that's like, mind blowing and a very upbeat song. And that kind of song almost, it's not a disco song, but it kind of does. I think of it as like a dance song or an upbeat song or like more like a funky 70s kind of like thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely got that vibe to it.
Yeah.
I might as well share this right now. Let's take a look at it. But before I do, I wanted to reply to something you said. Because you said they're the best band you've ever seen live, and that really does mean a lot, and I think carries a lot of weight because you've seen so many acts and because you've seen so many iconic acts. And I appreciate you saying that because for me, I usually just say they're the best band right now, or they're the best band touring, or they have the best live shows. But like to say that they're the best band of all time or the best live band of all time, I'm not really in a position to say that. And obviously this stuff is all subjective anyway, but to hear that from someone who's seen James Taylor, Billy Joel, Elton John, the Kinks, and all these other acts that you mentioned, it means something.
And the reason I say that is because, some of these guys are real high quality, like ELO. They'll blow your doors off, as far as quality is concerned. Jeff Lynne's voice is impeccable, but it's they don't have the depth and the live quality of Tedeschi Trucks, where Derek just kind of I don't want to say wing it, but they go into spaces that they didn't know they were going to go before the show started. And they take everybody with them, and it's so fun every time. It's great. And that's what, every once in a while the Dead would get in that groove, and they're probably the most comparable that I can. Every once in a while the Dead would get into a groove. Jerry and the Dead would get into a groove like the Tedeschi Trucks do, but never on a consistent basis like these guys do. I mean, the jams that they can bring, and the depth. When Derek can just turn to one guy in the band or one girl in the band and just give it to them, and they just take it, and then you see him, he takes it back, right, and then he kind of nods to somebody else, and they take it, and nods to somebody else, and they take it, and you go to 5 shows in a row like we have, it's not the same. They're not. These spots are not rehearsed.
Yeah, there's nothing like it. There just is nothing
amazing.
Nothing like it.
It truly is. So, but yeah, it still excites me when I talk about him. I don't know if you could see it in my eyes, but it still excites me when I talk about him. Because
for sure.
Spend a life. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I got the set list here. I was gonna see if you recall any other memories from that first TTV show. Don't know what it means. Don't know what it means. The letter anyhow. Laugh about it. Midnight in Harlem. Done somebody wrong. Sticks and Stones. Idlewind. Color of the Blues. It makes no difference with Amy Helm. Did a couple of songs with her. Let Me Get By. That did it. And Bound for Glory is what I'm seeing here. I would be thrilled to see this set list.
What a set! What a set! Right? How can you argue with that?
I'm not going to.
I mean, when she broke into the letter that time, I mean, when she does the letter, it's amazing. I can remember after that one looking at my friend and just going, wow, just wow, So,
show-stopping performances. You know what I think it is, and just even having the conversation with Jeff Fink in the previous episode, and just having all these conversations with everyone about TTB. I think because they're so eclectic, because they give you so much, because they have 12 members and all these different instruments and voices, they're able to cover, not sometimes literally cover, but they're able to they're able to cover so many different types of music and genres of music and feelings and emotions through their music and what we hear. So it's like you're getting some of the elements of the Grateful Dead. You're getting the soul music from the 70s and oldies, and of course blues and jazz and some world music. So you're able to get like this. It's so fulfilling to listen to this band because you're getting so many different things. And no disrespect to like bands that maybe some of their songs all sound the same, or albums sound like that, get accused of that. And maybe even Tedeschi Trucks, like to the outsider, their songs might like sound similar to some people, but like, yeah, I think we just get so much from the improvisation to the great writing of their in their lyrics and all this stuff. We get it all. And I think what drew you to Susan initially, it sounds like between your mom and some of the music that you were exposed to, you did have a little bit more of or somewhat of a female vocalist, singer, songwriter, powerful female, like interest in that and an ear for that. So I'm guessing that was just part of the appeal of Susan, like this powerful female blues voice, like was super intriguing and attractive.
Exactly. And nothing like it. She truly has that unique voice that that stirs you. So But you're right. It's been noted before, and I've been told that before, is that I tend to gravitate towards those solo female artists that have the unique voices, the Alana Morissettes, the Natalie Merchants, the Karen Carpenters. Those have all been great influences in my life. So
yeah, great voices are. No, sorry, I was just gonna say great voices are special because like when you hear like a Rod Stewart or a Susan Tedeschi or like who it is, it's so like distinct in a way. And that to me, that kind of like when I see like a bar band or something like that, a lot of the musicians, maybe it's just me, but like I feel like a lot of the guitar players and musicians and the people playing the instruments, they're quite good and quite, skilled at what they do. And the singers are good too, but that's usually I feel like is what's lacking from the bar bands I see is the quality in the vocalist and the uniqueness of the vocalist. They're not they're not always super unique, and they're not always the most they're not as talented as like obviously the higher level musicians. Whereas like the guitar player, the keyboard player, the drummer, like those guys are good. Maybe they should get a different singer or something like that. So yeah, I get your appreciation for the vocalists and the female vocalists for sure. Why don't you continue on your journey and tell me about your fandom and what happened after the Atlantic City 2016 show?
And I'll caveat this a little bit because, as I told you, I spent some time in New York and I was in New York on September 11th, and that kind of, as did a lot of people, that changed my life. My wife and I were in the city. Luckily, we were not in the area. We were in Midtown, but still, a different day. And I had, I always was a little weird with crowds. But when I went to New York for work, I kind of got used to being crowded because in New York, you can't, if you're traveling in New York at rush hour, you're going to be crowded. If you hop on a subway in New York at rush hour, is one of those where you can stand up like this and you don't have to worry about falling down. So after 9/11, crowds and we didn't mix so much. And it was music that gets me back into crowds. So after 2001, for the concerts that I went to between 2001 and probably Tedeschi Trucks, that show in 2016, I wasn't much for encores because the crowds after a show gave me a little, it's that irrational feelings, it's irrational.
I kind of know no, it's not totally. I mean, if I understand what you're getting at, is that like towards encores, people are maybe rushing to the stage. Everyone might be at their drunkest point of the night. Like there's more people are just, you feel less safe.
Right. is exiting and everybody's together. When you're getting into a theater, it's more kind of a flow. I never felt it as much. It was always at the end of the show when everybody's leaving at the same time.
Right, everyone's up at once.
Exactly. So I would always leave like I'd usually know when the encore would start, and I'd leave like a show or two into the encore, a song or two into the encore. That show, 2016, was the first show I stayed for the whole show since 2001. And to this day, Tedeschi Trucks is the only show that I stay for an encore for, because I can't help it. I can't leave. Wow. I can't leave. They're the band that has kept me in my seat and kept me in the venue, and now I even hang out for a set list or two if I can. So
I feel like that's sort of a compliment. It's definitely a compliment to TTB, but it's sort of a knock on other bands, but not fully a knock on other bands. Yeah. But that stinks. That like I believe you that you deal with these anxieties. Like that's not fun. That stinks and is unfortunate. I wish and maybe someday
and I can't tell you much crap I take for that for those 15 years. Before that. Now I do. Now they've helped me get kind of over that, and the COVID experience helped me get over it. Believe it or not, a little bit. So So that's kind of in the rearview mirror. But yeah, that started after 2001. This kind of that weirdness after shows. So I stay until like maybe right before the last song, right before everybody started to get out of their seats. But no, Tedeschi Trucks cured me of that, thankfully. So
that means, and that carries weight, obviously, because of the context that in which you're telling this this anecdote about your life. And the same thing with saying Tedeschi Trucks is the best band that you ever heard. That carries weight again because of the context and you being a person who's seen all these legendary acts.
Yeah.
I got you. Tell me more about more shows, more highlights, whatever you want to. I'll kind of let you steer a little bit.
So, well, one of the highlights that was, I think I might have sent the ticket. I'm not sure, but I was able to see one of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony shows at the Brooklyn. I forget what the name of that venue is, up in New York. Mainly because I'm such a huge ELO fan. ELO is getting inducted, but it was a great show. ELO got inducted. Danny Harrison played with Jeff Lynne, and each band played like 3 songs. And it was ELO, Yes, Journey, Joan Baez. Tupac was inducted, and Snoop Dogg was there, along with Alicia Keys. Niles Rodgers was there. He's very famous. I didn't know a whole lot about him until the show, but he was involved in a lot of big projects. And the closer was Pearl Jam. So that was a 5-hour show. That was a great show. And I got to see it on HBO a few months later. It was pretty good. That was a highlight. And let's see what else. But after that, I mean, I got to be honest. After 2016, it's TTB. I see a few.
That's what I'm here to talk about and ask you about and hear about.
So, TTB, Miriam Theater was my next show with TTB. They came to Philly and did a small residency, 3 nights in Philly. And Miriam Theater, I've gone to a few shows there, and I had a pre-sale. And so I get into pre-sale, and I hop into pre-sale, and the front row's open. The bang, front row aisle, right? Then I go to the next show, and I say, I'll skip a night. I'll go to the next show after that, right? Bang, second or third row. So
is these the pictures you sent me?
Yeah. So I print out the ticket, right? And it's row Z. Here I've gotten the stadium mixed up. I thought I was getting the first row. I was actually picking the last row.
Oh man, you thought you were facing this? Oh man. What's your middle name? Oze? What's your nickname? Oze?
Yeah,
Oze? Ozone?
I was in row Z and row X. And I'm all happy with myself. And I saw row Z and row X. I said, man, something went wrong here. What happened? Somebody messed up my tickets. I got the stadium mixed up. But you know what happened? I had to get that third show so I could get a better seat. So I went to all 3 shows. So, that's when I found out that multiple TTB shows are better than one TTB show.
Yeah. I learned that lesson the hard way in 2014, I think, when I saw them in Vegas, and I only went to 1 of 3 instead of 3 of 3 the last time they were in Vegas. And since then, I don't go to just one show. If there's a chance to get to more than one, I will go to at least more than one. So,
my better half, God bless her. She's been to a few of the shows with me. But she's not she's I met my wife in New York. She's from the Bronx. So her musical influences were not my musical influences. So I'm at TTB shows with friends, but she can't understand 3 shows. And I said, baby, I printed out the set list. I showed her. I said, baby, it's a different show every night. You got to look, and I swear, I saw the set list. I think 2 songs they repeated. in those 3 nights, and that's what I love about him, is that
June
each
8th,
show is
9th,
so
and
different.
June 8th, 9th, and 10th in Miriam Theater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Miriam Theater.
I think I could be wrong about this, but I think it was the first time they played Shame live. Was these shows? I think that maybe that June 8th
No
show.
kidding.
I see it on the set list here because I kind of
Mhm.
recall the first time hearing it on YouTube. Someone recorded it, or probably on the archive.org or whatever, tape or got audio. But I think that I
Mhm.
could definitely maybe the first version that came out to the public, but that might be the first time they ever played it live. And
Yeah, so
that was quite something to hear.
and then after that, it was like if they're within, throwing distance, if they're within like a car drive from me, I'm going to see these guys. That was it. I was all in after that. So after that, it was, I think, the Tropicana. I saw them at the Tropicana 1 year down in Atlantic City. I remember that show because I think on the set list, Susan did it one night in Philly, but for some reason I remember the Tropicana show because maybe it was because I was on that side and it was Kofi and they did a song for you for the encore. And for that, it was just her and Kofi. It's just so beautiful. And I don't know if you know, but Karen Carpenter covered that song. I didn't know it was a cover. I thought it was a Carpenter song, to be honest with you. And then I heard it was a Leon Russell cover.
That's the one I'm more familiar with, is the Leon Russell one for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, of course, me being the Carpenters fan, I only knew the Carpenters version. And so that was just incredible. That brought a tear to my eye. It was just, it was great. And I think the next one was the Met in Philly. They came to the Met in Philly. And then my first Beacon show. And that was a good concert weekend because I had Tedeschi Trucks, and I believe this was 2018. I had Tedeschi Trucks Friday night at the Beacon. No, I'm sorry, maybe Saturday night. I think it was Saturday night. Eric Clapton the next night at Madison Square Garden, and then Phil Collins in Philly the following night.
It's a nice little
And I told
run
my
there.
wife, I told my wife, I kind of wish they were in reverse. I think I wish I had seen Phil first, then Eric, and then Tedeschi Trucks, because it was Tedeschi Trucks was the highlight. Believe
no
it or
one
not,
could
was
follow
the
them.
highlight.
No one can follow TT. It's very, I mean, I guess a band that maybe has so many like super popular hits, or is in a different genre or something like that, or plays louder. Like there's in terms of like those things, but in terms of just like quality and just like the whole experience and the
Mhm.
how much one is moved by the music and
Uh-huh.
the musicianship of the band individually and collectively, like no one can match that. And it's come up multiple times, obviously, how Dead and Company followed TTB at one of those festival shows, and it was kind of like not ideal for them to be doing that. And since then, I haven't really seen too often TTB not at the top of the bill on festival
Yes.
shows, or very near the top. And obviously, they're playing at festivals that are more suited to their style of music and what they're into. But like,
Mhm.
I think it would be a challenge for any band to follow that.
Yeah.
How would you? How could you?
So that was my first Beacon show that year. And again, I think it was 2018, because then 2019 I went back for I think 2 shows the following year. And they were at the Met in Philly. At that, like in between, they played the Met in Philly. I saw them at the Met in Philly, and then and then I saw them at because then I think it was the following was the next Beacon, because I think COVID hit soon after that. I had tickets to see them at the Wheel of Souls tour in Philly, and that of course got postponed 2 years. Almond Betts was my last show before COVID. And I saw them in a little venue in South Jersey here, called the Scottish Rite Auditorium. And it's just a little Masonic auditorium. Great sight lines, great little venue. A little claustrophobic for me because kind of only got one in and out, one out entrance. So I get a little claustrophobic in the place, but it's not real big. But I saw the Allman Best Band in February of 2020, and that was the last show.
I know what you mean about those narrow hallways and those whatnot. Because I'm thinking about, like, I live in LA and just going to Dodger Stadium, which is like the third oldest park in the country now at this point, and they've done remodeling and there's lots of good things about the stadium. But like, yeah, after a game, like in the hallways and the concourses, they're not really as wide as some of the newer parks who have just a lot more space to maneuver around.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah, you're vulnerable is what you are when you're in crowds like that. But yeah, it's kind of a trade-off, I guess, to go to some of these events.
Which reminds me of one of the better shows I've seen, which was I saw right before that I saw Lindsey Buckingham at that little place, and he was there. He had just they had just been announced that he was kind of leaving the band, and he went out on a solo tour. And what a show that was! Lindsey Buckingham in a little place like that was pretty amazing. That was pretty good.
That's cool.
But so after COVID, they did the Fireside, and I had tickets for a little place down here in South Jersey called Apple Farms, but I ended up getting sick. My buddy went to the show. I had a pod, because at that time they were selling them in
they're
pods.
Separating. Mm-hmm.
So you'd buy a pod and it'd be like for 4 people. So I ended up being sick and during that time period, you just didn't go anywhere if you weren't feeling well. And I didn't go, certainly didn't go to a concert.
Probably still be doing that.
Yeah. So anyway, so I didn't go to that one, but then they, this radio station that I told you about, WXPN, they have what they call an exponential festival at WXPN. They have a little festival, and it's like 3 days, and TTB headlined the last day. So I got tickets for that, and it was down here in South Jersey at a venue. It's not the perfect venue, but it's a little outdoor kind of theater. And I saw them. That was their first, and that was I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't know, because I think the gentleman before had talked about it, but it was one of the first shows that the full band was back together after the Fireside tour.
Was Red Rocks the first show, or maybe that was the first show with Isaac? I'm not sure.
Yeah, this was June. This was in June of 2000.
Yeah, must have been before. Yeah, Red Rocks is July, late July, I think, usually.
Yeah, it was June of 2021. And they had already postponed the Wheels of Soul tour for that July because it was supposed to be like July of 2020, then it got postponed to 21, and then they postponed it to 22. So I went to the Beacon that year after the Tweeter, and that was the year that I met you. That was last year,
2021.
2021. I met you up there, and that was the first year that I kind of just we stayed up there, and I'm familiar with New York. I worked up there for a number of years, I told you, and so I just wanted to go out and hang out. And that Beacon Theater is such a great place to hang out and around. You meet so many interesting people, yourself included, and so I really love the atmosphere at the Beacon. Both outside and inside the theater. It's such a great place to be, and the first year, I met Bobby the first year, and got to see a couple of the members of the band. Bobby
T's you're referring to?
T. Yeah, yeah, he's a great guy. What a great guy, so nice. And of course, Ed Gendelman, who does all the taping.
Of course, both of them past guests of this podcast, Bobby and Ed, of course, multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, what that man, I'll tell you, he put in so much work to get those videos up, traveling back and forth from Philly and getting those shows.
Yeah, that's insane. I guess I didn't even realize that's what he does until this year. He drives home to Philly after every show? He doesn't stay in the city or
No,
whatever.
no.
I know he has obligations back. Yeah, he has obligations in Philly. I think he needs to deal with family stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's incredible what he does for us, the fans, and I appreciate that for sure.
But that first year was great. You know, I met you, and I met a bunch of people, and I thought, wow, man, what a great atmosphere at the Beacon. And then the Warner came along, and by now I'm hooked at him. You know, I'm in. You know,
you are already. Even more so. Yeah, I know.
Even more so now. You know, after the Beacon, I was just even more so because those Beacon shows are so fantastic. So I went to the Warner. The Warner is just a step. It's kind of Beacon like. It's not it's not New York, so it's not as open around the theater as New York is. You can't wander as much around the theater as you can in New York. So much at least, and it's colder. It's in February. But what great shows those were. And I went to I think 3 of those. I think 3 shows last year. And then they went and announced a show in Red Bank in New Jersey. Couldn't pass that up. And go see them in Red Bank now.
If you can make it, you go. I mean, that's kind of the rule. If you can, if the time and the finances and the significant others allow it to happen, we all go.
Yeah, sometimes with a significant other, she's not around right now, but it's kind of beg forgiveness as opposed to ask permission.
Yeah,
I don't do that too often.
It's in the back pocket.
TTB tickets. TTB tickets.
Sure.
I'm asking for forgiveness a lot. Oh, I didn't tell you I got those tickets for that show. Maybe I'm sorry, but it'll be fun. Come on, we'll go. Come on. So. But
you guys are funny. Like I forget who said, maybe it was Jeff last week or other. Or I think Whit Vicine also. It's like, oh, I got us tickets for our anniversary to see TTP. We're gonna make a trip into New York, but it's like it's all a gift for yourself, but also a gift for her, and you make a trip out of it, and also maybe see or do or something else besides TTP while you're in these cities. Up to this point, have you had any interaction? You must be because we met. I think, like I was saying, at the Beacon stage door, just hanging out and with around Bobby and whoever would pop their head out. Had you had interaction with band members at this point?
No, not really. Other than saying hello to Bobby, who's such a nice guy. I'm a little shy in that respect. Is that listen, I'll talk to just about anybody, but I'm a little shy in that respect. And I think that comes from the time I worked for Aramark and I worked down the casinos a little bit. And when you're around talent like that, you're told no interactions because you just unless you have business with the talent, you don't bother anybody.
You want to be professional.
Exactly, and in that I don't want to ever feel like I'm bothering anybody. And Bobby's very gracious because I know I probably bothered him up a couple times. Ryan's been very gracious too. Yeah, Ryan's been gracious too. Ed Gendelman, who I was hanging out with a lot this year, was very gracious. But so the first year not so much. I met you. I met some other folks. In passing that I haven't run into again. And as far as the door was concerned, I did meet Marty, who hangs out at the door all the time for the Beacon shows. Marty with the gray hair.
I met him too. Well. Yeah, and he's super nice guy.
And always good for a story. Always good for a story. And he clued me in to Warren Haynes, like the day before. He said, "Oh, I saw somebody who, hangs around is a good friend of Warren's, and he was having dinner over here, and I think Warren's going to show up tonight." Well, it wasn't that night; it was the next night that Warren showed up.
Oh, did he live? But Warren Haynes lives in New York City, correct? Or
does he?
That is a place. So he's always kind of. I think so. Yeah, so if he's in town, that's always, I guess, a possibility. If he's in town during a TTB show, that we may see that. But you haven't really had conversations with Susan, Derek, or other band members, maybe other than just saying hi when they come out or something like that.
This year was a little different. This year, a couple things changed. One is that realizing, how friendly people were, and that, I could hang out a little bit. I hung out a little bit more this past year. And I had the advantage of staying at the Beacon for us over Sunday and Monday. I couldn't do it for a weekend. The rates are, way
The
too
hotel,
high.
you
I
mean?
couldn't. Yeah, the hotel
The
Beacon.
hotel, you mean? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the hotel. So that that allowed me to be around. I was staying at the hotel, so just walking around. And that Monday, before the 50th anniversary show, was an interesting day. One is that during the day. By that time, I had gotten to know a couple of the guys who worked at the Beacon, and I was just passing by there. I just going out to get something to eat or something, and I was walking by the stage door, and one of the guys had that big sign that sits on the stage door. I think I sent you the picture of it. It's on my Facebook page. It's as far as the fan site is concerned, that has the Tedeschi Beacon Theater welcomes Tedeschi Trucks, and it hangs on the inside stage.
Yeah, I know what you're referring to.
Yeah, it's after security, and so you can just see it as if you walk by a stage door. Sometimes if the door is open, you can see it on the inside. Well, the guy had it all in his arms. It's all crumpled up. I said, "Don't throw that away." He says, "What, you want it?" I said, "Yeah, I'll take it." So I grabbed it. It's the big thing. I mean, carrying. Luckily, I had the we were staying close by, so I was bringing the hotel room, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to take it. I couldn't take that big thing, and nowhere to put it. But yeah, so my friend and I unraveled it, and I got it. It's too big to put anywhere. I was going to put it up here. That's it.
Yeah, I pulled it up here for the people watching here. It's got the band's logo and like the cityscape. It's just like little yellow squares on like a black. I guess this is probably vinyl or something. I don't know, what is this made of?
Yeah. It's a vinyl. And I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it at the time. Yeah, it is. But it's all sticky on the back, and it was all crumpled up. So that's why it's all wrinkled like that, because my buddy and I spent an hour pulling it apart very gently so nothing would tear or rip. And I ended up putting a sheet behind it so that it would, because it was almost like wallpaper kind of glue. It wasn't real sticky. But yeah, that's how apparently they put it.
Yeah, I have an unrelated, semi-related question. I produce comedy shows on the side, actually, and I have a banner that's also vinyl. And I was wondering, how do you actually flatten this out? Do you put wipe it with warm water? You take this to the dry cleaners or something like that? If we wanted to flatten this out, and then have it like professionally rolled up so it doesn't get to get rid of the creases? Because I'm sure if it's vinyl, isn't it malleable where it can be kind of
one would think. I tried, and I'll be honest with you, I tried an iron, and that didn't help to get the wrinkles out.
But it didn't ruin it.
It didn't ruin it. No. I put something in between it, like a towel or something in between.
Yeah.
Make sure I wasn't putting the iron directly on it.
To be honest, I tried it on an iron is a great sentence. I love that you're. It's like I'm confessing. It's a confession that you were experimenting. No, but yeah, the creases. But yeah. I'll Google that later.
Yeah, but it's a neat little keepsake. But I have no play. Much as I tried, my wife wouldn't use it as wallpaper in our living room. So
this is like what? It's like 8x6 or something like that. 10x8. This is pretty big.
It's huge. It's huge. I tried, like I said, to put it up today as my background for our discussion here. And one person can't hang it. It's too heavy. And painter's tape doesn't do it. It's got to be hung with something like duct tape, so I can't do it in the house. That's in my mother's porch.
You know what? Well, because I just happen to know, I guess, a little bit about it. Like, you can put put like a border around it or something, and then you could hang it with string or with like bungee cords or something like that.
Right.
With I forget what the little goblets,
right.
whatever the fuck.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And you could add a layer to hang it from. Yeah. I don't have any. I wouldn't. I have Tedeschi Trucks posters that I haven't hung up yet. that are still rolled
Oh,
up. Like I need
yeah, same here.
yeah, we need more space. We need to get bigger homes just for our memorabilia.
Just
And me and you don't
exactly.
even seem like we are like hardcore memorabilia people. I mean, I have a fair amount of ticket stubs and a few set lists. I have a little bit of everything, but I'm not like a collector of any one particular thing. Like I just check off the thing. I got Derek's slide. I got a pick. I got set list. Like I got an
I'm still looking
autograph.
for
I got
Derek
a
slide.
photo. Like what's that?
So here's a story. I had at the Man for the Wheels of Soul tour. They stopped at the Man Music Center here in Philadelphia. Nice venue. And I had great seats. I was looking forward to the show for so long. It was the one that was delayed for 2 years. I was like in the fourth row, and like the row in front of me, there was a boy probably about the age I was when I saw the Carpenters, like 11 or 12. And Adam, I thought to myself, would I want to be this child? I mean, he's listen, anybody goes to see Tedeschi Trucks, I'm happy for, because they're going to see and they're seeing the best band, around. And so I'm happy for him. But at the same time, I'm thinking, boy, how does anything live up to this after this, for this poor young man, right?
He sees him again, see the band again.
Exactly. I mean, but I mean, and I've said this to others, and I've said it to my wife too, is I'm glad I found TTB late in life, because, I wouldn't have seen all the acts that I've seen, because I'd be so TTB concentric, which is fine now.
That's a great point. Actually, that's a great point for me.
I'm glad it's later in life, because I've seen others, and now I know I'm looking at the best, and I'm happy right where I am. So anyway, so this young man, he proceeds to get up front with me at the encore, right? Because everybody kind of makes their way up front for the encore. I hold back until the encore, and then the encore, I think that everybody in the first couple rows has to understand you might have some company, and if I were up there, I think I'd be accepting of that. But anyway, so I was up there for the encore, and after the show, Derek slides his slide. He rolls his slide to the young man. So now, not only has he seen TTB, he's got a slide from Derek. How do you top that? Where do you go from there?
I wonder if he's like a guitar player himself, or will become one, or like where that went.
Yeah,
it's funny because it reminds me of there's an early guest, Pyatt Pund, who's a young musician he's in his early 20s now. But at a San Diego show, I was hanging out after the show outside, and Derek came out, and I see him give the slide to this guy, and I'm like, who is this young kid getting a slide from Derek? What is that all about? Like, in my brain a little bit. And then I'm, of course, talked to the guy after it, and he's a aspiring musician and loves Tedeschi Trucks and Derek and plays slide guitar. And then we became friends. And he actually
was he at the Beacon? Was he at the Beacon?
Yes.
I met him. We talked. I met him.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. He gives lessons. He gives Zoom lessons to my sister, and they're singing, and she's telling me about all the vocal techniques that she's like learning and stuff. So it's like, this is I guess that's sort of an unexpected thing for me personally, is like this whole like Swamp Family community, and a lot of the things that you're describing is like just an added bonus to like just being able to listen to the music. And just like, even when I started out this podcast, I wasn't like, I'm gonna be part of this amazing community. I was just like, I love this band and I talk about them a lot. Right. That's kind of like where the whole thing began. It wasn't like I want to be part of this amazing community, but like the amazing community has become a thing.
It is. I got a buddy, Kevin, who I still communicate with. We talk TTB. We'll probably see each other at the Warner coming up. He was looking for a ticket, and I had an extra for the Warner show, so I got him the ticket. There's this couple, Laura and Dan the Man. They were sitting next to me at the Beacon my first night, which was a Friday the first weekend. And so midway through the show, Dan, not purposely, but takes my water, right? So I look down, and Dan's drinking my water. And I'm like, okay, well, and he kind of realized it later on. He says, I think I took your water. I was like, don't worry about it. He said, I'll get you one at intermission. I said, don't worry. No, don't worry. Right. So next night, Saturday night, I come in, I take off my coat, I'm waiting for the show to start, and I feel a tap on my shoulder. And there's Dan the man. He's got a water for me. Hey, man.
This was somebody you didn't know previously, you're saying, before first
It was funny
night?
because, no, I didn't think I knew him. But the first night, I'm sitting next to him, and Laura looks at me, and she says, were you at the Philly show? And I said, yeah, I was at the Philly show. She says, I think we were sitting near each other. I said, I was in the fourth row. She pulls out her phone, right? And she pulls up a picture, and I think it was one I posted on Facebook. It was one of the ones I think I sent you, me, the man, but it was from Nugs, because Nugs broadcast that show, and I had bought the Nugs broadcast.
Are you wearing the striped shirt, the blue striped shirt?
Yeah, that was me. Yeah,
Let's put that one up here for the viewers here.
And that was at the Encore. That picture I took from Nugs at the Encore. But anyway, so she pulls up a picture. Yeah, there I am. And I like that angle, because what I love about that angle is it's from the stage, so it's kind of what the band sees, And there's
how did she? Who took this photo? You said
this was from Nugs. It was a capture from the Nugs TV. I froze it.
Oh, this
froze the broadcast
stream from the stream. Yeah. This was I think I watched that show. This was this year. This was this year.
Yep. Yeah, it was the Wheels of Soul.
Yeah. And I mean, there's been very few shows that if TTB is putting out a stream of that I have not caught in the last 2 years since, I guess. The Nugs and whatever they put on Swamp Family. I mean, if not, I'm certainly hearing it on the archive.org. That's that is life. Those live recordings.
So at the Beacon, Laura pulls out this picture and she says, "Yeah, here." She says, "Here's me," and she points it out. And I said, "Well, there's me." And I'm like, she was like in the row in front of me, and she remembered, And so we were, good friends after that. It was fun. We had a good time, and it was fun because, and I made a couple faux pas in my concert career. And one of them is that we got there because the traffic. We got there late, and really at that show I was really looking for TTP, but we got there for Los Lobos. We missed Gabe. I caught him on the stream, but traffic around Philly is just horrible, and the parking is just a mess. But anyway, so we got there, and I'm it's a self-deprecating story here. Is we're listening to Los Lobos, and Derek came on to play with Los Lobos. So I was all over that. I was like, oh, great. Yeah, Derek's out there. And I'm thinking now, and don't fault me. Don't fault me, Adam, because I've told you I'm bad with names, right? Bad with names. So I didn't know it was Los Lobos on stage. So I asked the guy, I said, Tedeschi Trucks came on right after. And I asked the guy in front of me, I said, did Los Lobos come on? The guy was like, looked at me like I was crazy, So then they came out and played with them later on. And I went to the guy and I went, oh my God. I said, shows you how much I know. Now the other one was, I was a Doobie Brothers show one time. And it was at a venue in Atlantic City. And Adam, and I was there with a girl who I wanted to impress. And I screamed for Love the One You're With for the first 3 songs until somebody told me they don't sing that song.
That's a good one.
That's a Steven Stills song.
Right. It is a Steven Stills.
Yeah. So yeah, so Dan was there. Dan remembered that because Dan was right in front of me. He remembered that. Maybe that's why they remembered me. But we got along at the Beacon. We had a good time. Which it always is at the Beacon. I mean, you can't have a bad time at the Beacon.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the whole Swamp Family and the whole community aspect of Tedeschi Trucks Band fandom, and I talk about this every episode, is that that those bonds, and the whole tone is kind of set from above, set from the band, set from Derek, set from Susan. But in your experience going to so many concerts and seeing the same acts multiple times, I guess what I'm asking is, can you compare we've compared the music a little bit, but what about the fan bases and interactions with fans? And maybe obviously it's a different, some things are different eras, but how do different fan bases compare in your experiences with fan bases?
Well, first off, is there as far as fan bases are concerned, I don't think there's the Dead were comparable, and I keep getting back to that. Is the Dead fan base was comparable in the sense of very embracing. Dead shows were always that way, very embracing. It's not everybody kind of in their own world. Everybody's kind of, hey, we're all here to have a great time kind of thing. The Wall was like that. When I went to see The Wall, Pink Floyd's The Wall was that way, that atmosphere. With Tedeschi Trucks, it's that way every show. And during the show, it's so electric during the show, especially on the first level, because the first level, I don't know of a show where I stand the whole show like I do in Tedeschi Trucks, and I can't remember shows where I've stood the whole show like we do Tedeschi Trucks, and I know sometimes it's a point of contention for for some folks on the first level,
Sure,
but and I was in Miriam. I told you the story where I was in the last row, and I'm telling you, that show was just as good from the last row as it was from any row that I've towards the front that I've been in. It still reaches they still reach the back. I'm still dancing and boogieing in the back. And I love that, so, and that's where, I try to, I love the fan club. And I love the way they treat their fans with their fan club. I don't know of any other fan club out there that treats their fans the way the way that these guys do it. I've been a member of some fan clubs. I'm usually more of a venue kind of pre-sale guy as opposed to an artist pre-sale kind of person. I was a part of U2's fan base. I think Rob Thomas from Matchbox 20, I was in his fan club as paid, but for their fan club, you can't get better bang for your buck. As far as the way
I was gonna say that's good to know, because I don't have any basis for comparison, because I'm just all in on TTB, and I love music, but I would never enough to really want to or need to go to join the fan club. But yeah, it's now my concert going experience starts with and kind of ends with TTB, and everything else is seeing my local friend's band, or someone else spearheading some kind of trip, or maybe a bucket list artist or something like that. But everything is kind of definitely centers around TTB. Interesting to hear about the fan clubs and some of the different communities. Anything else what else should we cover? Anything else we need to talk about? I feel like I've taken up enough of your time, and I know we could go all night talking TTB.
Oh yeah, that's for me, it's a never-ending subject, and I'm glad I'm able to spend a couple hours getting it out with you. My wife
doing a service for your wife. Yeah, I'm doing exactly. That's what I was saying.
She's going to send you a thank you note, I think, at some point, saying thank you, please, because I come home from these shows and I'm just, I'm just wired. I come home from the shows and it's, baby, you won't believe they played this. Oh, baby, you won't believe they played this and played this. That Harry Styles cover, on Saturday night that they did at the Beacon, unbelievable. Sign of the Times, that was amazing. And the interaction, I had one interaction with Susan. It was Monday. I gotten that sign, and I had just walked up to the stage door, and Bobby was hanging out, and I stopped and I said hello, and I was telling him another little story. I don't know what I should say here, but I was telling him another story about Derek's mom, and just I look up and there's Susan walking down the street with a coffee in her hand, comes right up to us, because I'm standing there talking, says hello. I'm fumbling over my words. I'm like, oh, Susan, I'm a big fan, and they and I wanted they had done Whiskey Legs on is it Saturday night, right before the encore. Her and Derek went at it on Whiskey Legs, and it was just amazing. And I was like, oh, I loved Whiskey, and I couldn't think of the song. And I was so embarrassed. And Bobby helped me out. Whiskey Legs. I'm like, yeah, Whiskey Legs. So they're fantastic. And that was it. Otherwise, I was able to, I talked to Tyler for a little bit. He was very nice. I was able to talk to Gabe a couple times. And otherwise, I was able to say hello to most of the crew, just say, have a good show, or, what a great show. Again, try not to bother.
It's interesting. Yeah. You have that hour mark professional experiences. And I think we all, at least on some level, the goal is to not fanboy out too much and not bother anyone. But at the same time, this is what I tell people who I've talked to who haven't really interacted with the band and talk to them. But how could you not at least want to go up to them and thank them for the music and just tell them how awesome you think it is? Just like that, at the very least, I feel like you owe it to the band to approach them if you have a chance, just to tell them how awesome the music is at the very least, and not feel like you're bothering them.
Yeah, and I hope they understand that sometimes it's really, it's a gift that they give to us, and for me it's I'm not a religious person, but it's kind of like going to church. When I go to a TTB show, it's kind of like going to church for me. It's that kind of celebration almost.
I've expressed definitely the same. Certainly. It's funny because I think about the conversations with the band members, and it's or any public figure whose time is valuable, and you kind of don't want to not take up too much of it. But I think most people know, or people in the public know to say, well, it was nice meeting you. Well, it was nice seeing you. If you hear, well, it was nice meeting you, or well, it was nice seeing you, you're okay. Yeah, right. Exactly. But it really is a polite way to kind of continue on your day. And I really appreciate the access and how friendly, you're just by these little anecdotes saying how friendly Susan is. Cause
one last story I have to tell you about Beacon on Saturday night. So, we hang out there for, the stage door. It was before the show and I wanted to get a coffee. It was a little cold that night. So I walked into the corner diner there, and I've been there a few times. I knew the guys in there. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna grab something to eat. I was a little, hungry, and so I sat down. They got a little counter at the diner, like a little counter, and sitting across from me, so it's like a corner, is a gentleman. He's middle aged. He looks maybe about my age, maybe a little older. And there's a baseball game on, so I just start talking to him. You know me. That's how we met. Just start talking, and I said hello, and we start talking about the game, and then we start talking about where he's from. He's kind of from Pennsylvania, near me, and then the subject gets on. I asked him about, are you here for the show? An off chance, because he didn't look like he looked more like a businessman. He looked more like a guy there on business, so to speak. So I'm talking to him, and he says, long story short, he gets around. He says, I collect guitars, and I have an interest in guitars and amps, and the guitar that Derek's going to play tonight, the acoustic guitar, is my guitar. I said, what? He says, yeah. He says, I bring 3 up, and Derek picks the one he likes, and and he plays it. And I said, really?
Wow.
He says, yeah. He says, yeah. He says, this particular guitar was a Gibson pre-war, or wartime. I'm sorry, wartime. And during the wartime, most of the old masters had come back, they thought, because the young guys went off to war. They were off fighting the war. So they thought that the reason, because the the guitars from that era, from that wartime era, are known to be very good. And he said one of the reasons is because the guitars are so thin, the wood is so thin that it gives a special timbre to the guitars. Normally, he said the Gibson made them really thick because they guaranteed them, so they made them able to handle, some use. But during the war, because material was, short, they made the guitars thinner. So, and they thought that because the old masters were back, because all the guys went off to war, that was one of the reasons why these guitars were better. He said until they found an old picture, and what they found was they had a picture of the staff during that time, and guess what? 90% women. So he said that more than likely these guitars were probably made by women on the factory. And this guitar, he told me, it had an ebony back, a maple front, and it was so cool, Adam. And I got to see Derek came out and played that. You can see it on YouTube. Ed has it up on YouTube. It's Saturday night. It's the first song after the encore. Here.
So Long Savior, maybe? No.
Wait a minute.
The acoustic after yeah.
I can feel you.
Pull it.
Right? Can you
lift it. Yeah, raise it up a little. I see Had to Cry, Midnight in Harlem, Gilded Splinters. Keep lift it up more. Angel, like Pity the Fool. Fire and Rain. So what song did he play use that guitar on?
The first one. I Can Feel You. And see where it says chair?
Oh, I could. Oh, that's the second. That's the second.
The second set.
Yeah, that's the second. Yeah, I Can Feel You Smiling. Yeah.
Here's the
How
first
special is that, dude?
Isn't that cool?
How special is that you get that story from the guy, you get familiar with that guitar, and they come out and play. Special, I can see you. I Can Feel You Smiling. See you smiling.
Yeah, and you know what was really cool is that I came back. And I told that story to Ryan and to Bobby, and they were both, well, Ryan, and he was kind of like, wow, I didn't know that about that guitar. They knew who the person was. They knew who the guy was. And I saw him after the show. I don't know if you were there with me or not, but he had the guitar over his shoulder as he walked out the stage door that night. And I said hello.
I think I saw that. I thought maybe I thought that was some fan trying to get a guitar signed or something. I wasn't sure what.
No, No, he had that guitar. He had the guitar over his shoulder, and he was leaving that night. And I said hello again, and thanks for the chat. It was really cool. It was very cool. His name was Dave. His first name was Dave.
And that makes the whole listening experience that much richer and better, does it not? The whole fan experience, I don't know. If there's the more meaning to the music, the more it's going to emotionally affect you and impact you and be. I don't know, just more of a net positive in your life. I don't know.
It's one of my favorite songs. My dad passed not too long ago. In fact, it's around this time. 2 years ago, he passed on New Year's Eve, 2020, to top off a great year. But it reminds me of Dad, and so it was real special. And I love those stories. I love coming back with a story, Adam. Is to be able to my wife hates it, my other half hates it, but I love having a story to come back, from anywhere I go, have a little story to come back with.
I think I'm kind of the same way, and I kind of seek out meaning and look for meaning and connect the dots and kind of try to articulate in my head at least a narrative to my life and my TTB fandom even. Yeah, is it I Can See You Smiling or I Can Feel You Smiling? I Can Feel You Smiling, I think. I Can Feel You Smiling. Yeah. I Can Feel You Smiling. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good song to send to people who recently suffered loss. That's a good thing because I do know some people who maybe are no, I'm gonna keep that in the back pocket and think about that. Yeah, and they recently put out a video, I think was it the Fireside sessions or from just I Am the Moon behind the scenes? I think it was just I Am the Moon behind the scenes footage when they were kind of writing that song and working it out, and they put out that full video. On your YouTube, which is Yeah, that is super cool. On that note, I definitely appreciate all your time and the stories. It's been super fun. I don't know if you want to plug or promote or anything. If you're a public figure or anything like that, I'll give
Oh
you the
no,
floor to do that. You're just a
thank you,
guy.
thank you. I
You're
appreciate it,
just a
brother.
guy.
Yeah. So,
Oh,
I'll see you next time you get back east. Make sure you let me know when you're heading back east, and we'll have a good time, man.
yeah, I got maybe all 7. If I do all 7 at the Beacon, I gotta like maybe chill with going to some other. I don't know. We'll see. I like
Um,
Atlanta a lot, going to the Fox. I could see going back there. Now, I may or may not have a connection in Red Rocks to some friends out there now that I recently connected with. So I don't know,
yeah,
that maybe that's on the table too, and they haven't announced that yet. So should maybe, it's an 18-hour drive. That's probably not really on the table from LA
yeah.
drive to
I
Red
talked
Rocks.
I talked to the other half. My bucket list, Red Rocks, is not on not this year, but I'm hoping to get to 7. I got to 5 last year. It was supposed to be 4, and I said, here's another one where you ask for forgiveness. I told my wife, let's go up Friday, because I had tickets for the Saturday show. I said, we'll go up Friday. This way you can get settled in the hotel. We don't have to worry about anything. We don't have to worry about the drive. You can take it easy on Saturday. And once we got the hotel, I said, well, since we're going, maybe I'll get a ticket for Friday. Ended up with a ticket for Friday. Ended up with 5 shows.
Yeah, of course.
Probably do
Of
7
course.
this year. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. On
Anyway,
that note,
thanks,
thank
man.
you again. Thank you. Let's talk soon.
Okay. You have a good one, Adam.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
You too. Later. So there you go. Episode 99 with Bob Oze Farrell. That was a lot of fun. We covered a lot. We covered it all. That dude loves TTB just as much as me, just as much as all of us. And it's interesting to see fans that come in 2016, 2011, grew up seeing Susan and Derek. And so it really doesn't matter necessarily when you come in. And all that matters is that you're here and that you love the band and just feel gracious and gratitude that you, whoever's listening, gets to be part of this community in some capacity, and that we get all this great music. But on that note, to follow this show, it's at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram, on YouTube. Just search Tedeschi Trucks Podcast. Of course, please subscribe, iTunes, Spotify, however you listened. Positive reviews on Apple Podcasts, iTunes are greatly appreciated. I'm at Adam Troy on Instagram and Twitter. TedeschiTrucksBand.com is the site for all things TTB, their official site, TedeschiTrucksBand.com. Buy the merch, buy tickets, join the Swamp Family Club. As Bob and I were talking about, totally worth it. Like, he gave a good sales pitch. I didn't even expect that, but yeah, no, it's definitely a great community to be a part of. My other podcast is People We Love Podcast, peoplewelovepodcast.com, or at People We Love Podcast on Instagram. TheEditedMovie.com is my short film. Check that out. But I think that's pretty much all I got for today. Next episode is going to be 100, so I'm going to cook up something for that. So be on the lookout for that. I'll be posting more information soon, but that should be a celebration of some kind for sure. Yeah, I think that's all I got. Later, guys.